Hey guys, due to some family matters, I was unable to watch the first episode of Chucky Season 2 last night when it debuted, but I've since caught up, and hopefully in the coming weeks I will be able to watch them with all of you guys when they do premiere and then give you my instant reactions, my instant takeaways. But since I couldn't do that, you've probably already watched a ton of review and reaction and breakdown videos, so let's do something different. While we wait for episode 2, let's go ahead and ponder 10 big questions that I now have after watching the first episode of Chucky Season 2. Number 10, how involved will Andy and Kyle be in Chucky Season 2? That is right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw out there right here, right now, that they are alive. We heard in this episode that they didn't find Andy's body and his death would have happened off screen, which of course in anything horror means that he's not actually dead. He is still out there. And yes, I know that in Season 1 when you had the explosion at the house, they did find a body at the scene, but there was never any sort of identifying the body. We don't know for a fact that it was Kyle, and she means so much to the fan base. The fact that you didn't actually see her death on screen and you didn't see any sort of emotional fallout, seeing Andy have to find the body and deal with it, it just means they didn't service it properly, which means she's still out there. And we saw that black gloved hand on the tree at the cemetery at the conclusion of Season 1. So I'm going to say Andy and Kyle are still very much in the fray, but to what extent? Number 9, Caroline was a very interesting character to me in Season 1. I would do weekly recaps and kind of ask you guys what you thought about certain things. I'd pose questions like I'm doing right now, and I would give you my biggest takeaways. And Caroline always came up because I was really expecting more out of her. I was thinking she was going to have some sort of sinister turn or have some sort of weird evil arc. And I think we may still get that. They are really building things with this character because she has such a duality about her. She can seem like such a sweet, nice, pure little girl. And then all of a sudden, she has no impulse control. And she becomes this sort of unchecked feral brat who, if she doesn't get her way, can really spiral out of control really quick. And she has an obsession with dolls. And we see that here in the first episode, to where even with everything that happened with Chucky and what she believes Chucky to be responsible for, the fact that Lexi is forbidding her to have any involvement with any sort of dolls, she just can't do that. She's there palling out with the bride doll, which I tend to believe is going to be possessed by Tiffany. So does she become under Tiffany's tutelage? What happens there? I cannot wait to see what's going to happen with this young angel-faced Caroline character that may have a more devilish side to her deep down. Number 8, props to this first episode for getting me very interested in what the eventual arcs will be for Lexi and Jake in this season. Lexi seems like she is spiraling out of control. She's kind of acting out both sexually and through substances. We see her doing cocaine and going into the medicine cabinet and looking at all of the pills and things. She just seems to be out of control. Now she's going to be thrown into this Catholic church environment, and she's talked about having a previous bully that she's going to be associated with and have to deal with here at the Catholic setting. She's just going to be confronted by a whole lot while in the grips of addiction. So it'll be interesting to see if she comes out unscathed, or does she ultimately pass away in this season. I think that would be a good way to surprise fans and induce some stakes into the season. Really interested to see what they do with the Lexi character. And then Jake, the way he opened this episode, almost like a little teen melodrama, Degrassi-esque moment with his new boyfriend. And it seemed like he was happy-go-lucky. You know, he had a new foster brother. Life was good, or as good as it could be, as he tried to deal with his trauma from Season 1, to where now he's lost that foster brother, and he seems to feel very, very responsible for that young boy's death. And he's taking it hard, so hard that when said boyfriend puts his hand on Jake's leg to comfort him, or maybe get him to reach out and hold his hand, Jake isn't having it. He seems cold, he seems angry, he seems like he's got vengeance in his heart. And we got to see that kind of explored a little bit in the beginning of Season 1, where Chucky was first able to get in there and tap into some inner anger, some demons. So we see those play out more in this season for Jake. It'll be interesting to see which directions Lexi and Jake are going. And speaking of that new Catholic setting, I'm really interested to see what they're going to do here. That seems like a fresh thing for Chucky and this Child's Play franchise. And Don Mancini is, of course, a gay man. We have 2 gay characters. Don Mancini has come out and said, that the Catholic Church hasn't always been, the most favorable towards the LGBTQ community. And that was hard for him growing up as a Catholic kid who went to a Catholic school. So I feel like this is going to be a very personal story. And we're going to go places and have some themes. And I think we may even rub some people the wrong way. We may get a little bit offensive with our thematics. And I'm here for that because I think horror is meant to kind of challenge you at times and to raise questions and kind of dig into the real world horrors and anxieties of things. But also, they've done such a good job of homaging other beloved horror properties. In the first episode, you saw that with The Strangers and with Scream and even Halloween. So it'll be really cool to see Chucky kind of take on homaging and referencing and bringing to life stuff from yesteryear, stuff like The Exorcist and The Omen. And they've kind of tapped into that already with the promotional materials. So things are about to get really dark, really heavy. We're really setting that up with the first episode. And we're going to do that now in this very religious setting, a place that Charles Lee Ray has experienced and these kids don't, which means he's going to have the upper hand. And they are really, really under his control right now. They are under Chucky's thumb. He opened this season really kind of with some power moves, and his plan is off to a great start. But now, about the means, the contrivances, if you will, that saw them going to this Catholic refinery school, if you will. That old lady, the therapist, what is going on with her? I have questions. Is she involved with Chucky and Tiffany? Does she have a history with Charles Lee Ray from him going to that school all those years ago? There's just something not right. I mean, she has the bride doll that she makes it, a must for Caroline to go home with this doll and have this sort of like flooding, drowning therapy to where, hey, you're having a hard time with dolls? Well, you're just going to get tossed in the deep end. You now have to live with this doll and have this symbiotic relationship with this doll until you are healed and on the straight and narrow again. Seems like an odd tactic. Seems a little forced. Seems like a contrivance at first. And since I first saw the trailer for this, I was like, okay, that's cool. How are we going to get these three there? How is that going to work? That doesn't seem like it makes any sort of sense. But the fact that you had her providing counsel and really stumping for them to be put here, and that was how they would be refined and punished and corrected and see the consequences of their actions, maybe turn over a new leaf, seems like she may know more than the audience does right now. She may be in cahoots with Chucky or Tiffany. So I'm really interested to see if she comes back and is involved any further in this season. Number 5, we know that not all of the Chucky dolls died when Andy sent that van careening over the cliff. So of course it raises the question, how many are more out there? But also the fact that there's now numbers to Chucky allows him to do things he's never done before, which makes this more dramatic, way more scary, and just so many more possibilities. I mean, you saw him go kamikaze in this first episode, and that's of course something we've never been able to see Chucky do before. I mean, we've seen him get pretty vicious, pretty relentless in the past, like in Child's Play 2, where he rips his own hand off because it's trapped and shoves a knife down into the bloody stump. That's definitely an advantage that our killer doll icon has over other horror icons, is that he now has numbers. He has an army of himself. His soul has been separated into so many different vessels that he can afford to be like, you know what? I'm willing to take myself out if it means taking you out. So how many Chuckies are there? Because that means that our protagonist could really be in danger. Now to talk further about Chucky, what is going to happen with him and Tiffany? Because they are not on the same page. We didn't really see Tiffany in this episode, or at least we didn't realize we were seeing Tiffany. She may be in that bride doll. But what is going to happen? Because so much of Cult of Chucky and the last season of Chucky, his plans were really dependent on her cooperation and her playing an integral role. But they got beef now. And he doesn't have a lot of nice things to say about her, and he seems to want revenge on her. And, she's not going to go down without a fight. So will she at some point subvert all of our expectations and ruin Chucky's plans? Will she do something that saves the kids at the Catholic school? Or will she come in and put them in danger with her own plot, but also do something that ruins Chucky's day? And maybe she kills off dozens of different Chuckies. Who knows? I'm really interested to see what they're going to do, because this opens a new set of possibilities to have her in complete opposition to Chucky. That is a fun, fresh angle, and we could really do some things with that. Kind of alluding to the fact that at some point, we may see Charles Lee Ray go into the body of Jennifer Tilly. In which case, what does that look like? That could get real wacky, real weird, real fast, because we've seen Fiona Dorff emulate her dad to perfection, but, who's to say Jennifer Tilly could do the same thing? Their voices aren't exactly the same. It could either be a laugh riot and awesome, or it could be distractingly god-awful and atrocious. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do here. Will Chucky go into Tiffany's body at some point? Will Tiffany continue to split up her own soul? And we're going to have an army of Tiffany's versus an army of Chucky's. And the kids are just caught in between. How wacky, how weird, how ambitious are we going to get here with all this soul splitting stuff? And number 2, we didn't get any Nika in episode 1. Where is Nika? What is going on with Nika? We didn't get anything from her or Tiffany. And that really is the plot line I'm most interested to see developed and that I want to explore, because that was horrific at the end of season 1, where we realized that after being drugged, she comes to and she no longer has any arms or any legs, that she is completely just hopeless in a futile position, the plaything of the demented Tiffany. So what are we going to do here? What hopes are there for her? Where are we going with this? Is her only hope to learn some sort of voodoo herself and to put herself into a doll? That would be a fun irony or a fun juxtaposition to have this series that the entire time has always been about Charles Lee Ray trying to get out of a doll body. And now we have an actual good guy character trying to get into a good guy doll, wanting to go from human to doll. We're so used to it being about trying to go from doll to human. That could be fun because her new body, she's not going to be able to do a whole lot. And it may seem like we're really limiting ourselves by doing that, but we can really explore some things here. Don Mancini talked about wanting to take a handicapped character and show that they still have a whole lot of vitality and a whole lot of resourcefulness about them. So, Nika, who's my second favorite character just behind Chucky, she could really go some places if he has some real sharp ideas. I just want to see what we're going to do with her, and I was sad she wasn't in this episode. And my biggest question or biggest takeaway, if you will, is what are we doing with the meta nature of this series now? Now, I know in Seed of Chucky, we talked about there being like a Chucky Goes Psycho movie and having a meta nature to where the events of the first 4 films, actually transpired or were put to the silver screen in some capacity, and that you had Jennifer Tilly playing in those movies. But now, kind of dropped a huge bomb on the fan base in episode 1 when we talk about the bride of Chucky from the movie. Where are we going with this? We've opened Pandora's box, and this could have just been a frivolous throwaway line that's inconsequential, but it really creates an issue for continuity. It may create an issue for the way you look back on the previous films and what this new inclusion means. And it could just make for a whole lot of tenuous storylines and connections going forward. So what are we going to do with this meta nature? Was it a throwaway line, or are we about to bite off a whole lot going forward? Is this going to be a running thing? Because we know Glenn and Glenda are coming into the fold at some point. And we're going to get a lot of Tiffany, who, for as far as the world knows, is Jennifer Tilly, who would be the actress and star. And then it also just makes you question so much. Like at the end of season 1, where they're talking about basically trying to help sick, dying kids by mailing them these dolls, these Chucky dolls. Well, if Chucky is a known serial killer and there are movies about his deeds, that would be like sending off Annabelle dolls to kids at St. Jude's. I just can't imagine that. And nobody's raising any questions about this. Nobody feels like this is weird or wrong. This isn't a PR nightmare for Jennifer Tilly. That's just a small example. There are so many things that if you start to pull this thread and you've included this little meta nature now, things can unravel very, very quickly. We are playing with fire here, ladies and gentlemen. So how did you feel when you heard that? Were you like, oh, this is fun. This opening Pandora's box means so many different ways to play, new avenues. Or did you go, uh-oh, this house of cards could fall in on itself at any given moment? So there you go. Those are the 10 questions I had after watching the first episode of Chucky Season 2. Let me know your thoughts down below. And I have one more thing to ask you. Would you have yourself a great day? I'm Nate for natemareflix saying that's a wrap.